Medics. The class near and dear to the heart of like 3 people. Nobody likes to play healer in any game, cause they're boring. That's why games like Overwatch or Marvel Rivals feel a need to add a bunch of other over-the-top things to their supports to make them remotely interesting. Which always leads to, mixed results? Why they thought those games needed a dedicated healer class is beyond me anyway. But what if I told you that Arknights, a tower defense gacha game, managed to solve the decades-old problem of healers being boring? Because I won't do that. They didn't solve it. Well, not exactly. Hi, I'm Father Markel, the holy grail of 100% correct takes about this game, and also one of like 2.5 people who play Medicmiya. Which makes me somewhat competent when it comes to talking about medics. If you have no clue what Medicmiya is, well, it is a niche way of playing Arknights where you masochistically limit yourself to only choosing medics for your squad. Why would anyone do that? Fuck if I know. But what I know is what medics you should get, what medics you should level, and how best to utilize them both as a normal player and as a Medicmiya enjoyer. Derogatory. First things first, you rarely actually need medics on higher levels of play. Between medic defenders, Haruka, and a shitload of self-sustain and damage keywords on modern ops, you will very rarely need dedicated healers. Does that mean you never need medics at all? Nah. But they're definitely not the most used AFK strat operators. At lower levels of account development, however, the story is different, and ignoring the use of Rhode Island Medical Department could make your journey that much more difficult. Now then, which medics are good and which are not? Short answer, to be a good medic you have to do something else. Long answer, the rest of this video. Just like in competitive hero shooters, medics and AK need to have some extra utility to be good. Anyone can heal, and operators like these ones are so interchangeable that there is very little point in talking about them. I'll be talking about general applications of medics, as well as their usefulness in Medicmiya in case some of you actually want to try that shit out. Every time I give any number for the skills and talents, assume it is at max mastery module level with no potentials. Some general things to consider about medics, with some exceptions, mainly Calcit and elemental medics. Your medics will primarily target the lowest health unit in their range. Enmity units like Musha Guards or Juggernauts can't be directly healed, but indirect healing like Perfumer's Talent or AS Skill 3 can still work. Medics are very squishy, so you want to not deploy them last, lest your backline crumble from receiving too much backshots from ranged enemies, and then your entire team dies. Whoopsie! Class breakdown. Standard medic. Nothing fancy, relatively high attack for the class, marksman range of 4 rows of 3 in front. Can heal 1 target at a time. AoE medic. Isn't actually AoE, but rather targets 3 operators at max with a heal. Attack values are lower than standard medics, range is 3 tile rows in front and 1 behind. Chain medic. Same range, attack somewhat higher than AoE medics, but instead of healing 3 targets at once, the heal bounces up to 3 times with diminishing healing values by 25% each. Can theoretically be used to heal targets outside the range, but it is dubious at best. Incantation. Same range as normal medics, but they heal by attacking enemy units, and restoring a portion of the dealt damage to allies in range. Basically core casters with better range and self-sustain. Therapist. They have the range of normal medics extended on the sides, and their healing gets reduced to 80% if the target is on these outer tiles of the range. Their whole shtick is providing your operators with status resistance. These negative statuses are Cold, Frozen, Stun, and Burning Breath, that only Tallulah can apply. Wandering Medic has low attack, inverted therapist range, and prioritizes target with most elemental damage on them. Their attack also restores a portion of that damage in addition to healing. Said damage includes nervous impairment, corrosion, burn, and necrosis. Okay, that's the classes out of the way. Let's talk about individuals of note. Standard medics. A class populated by the boring healers can offer many flavors of I restore health to unit in my range for your needs. Special mentions go to Calcit. Cat Tits should arguably have her own subclass, but that's a conversation Hypergriff is not ready for. Even without monsters, she would be an amazing unit just for the range alone. But she has monster. and Monster is pretty fucking cool. Monster is a monster of a stat stick. Yeah. Boasting over 4k HP and over 1k attack, 3 block and 300 plus def in Cal's range. She is an amazing lane holder boss killer, which is further amplified by Cal's skills. Well, 2 of her skills. S1 is laughably bad. Oh yeah, it gives Monster plus 150 defense, turning her into a tank. Sounds good, right? And then we look at S3 that gives plus 200% def and 260% attack, and makes attacks deal true damage. Yup. Need I elaborate? S3 is what everyone knows and loves Cal for, aside from her lengthy monologues in the story, and if you're going to give her masteries, I suggest S3 first. But in general, she is great M6 candidate, and if you have mats to spare, getting her S2 to M3 would serve you well. On M3, it is an amazing lane holding skill with amazing uptime, shitload of attack and attack speed, and attacking all blocked enemies goes hard. It is worth mentioning that Cal herself gets the attack speed buff, which ups Monster survivability. Her main downsides come from A. needing 2 deployment slots, B. her being very selfish. She prioritizes herself and her pet Spine for healing above all else. Fun little fact, with the release of Monster the Operator, she can also prioritize her. Neat little flavor thing. So in a map with Poison Haze-like effect, she literally will never heal anyone besides her and her pet. And see, her good skills charge only when Monster is present, so no heli dropping Monster with skills at the ready. Module wise, her Y is straight up better, and it gives better and more useful stats on top of giving Monster an amazing flat plus 20 attack speed and plus 20% def. Meanwhile, X makes a dinky 1500 damage explosion when the Spine drops below 50% health, which is very IS module is fucking nuts, and you should always use it in the game mode. Thankfully, it is extremely cheap to get. Warfarin. Warfarin is great, specifically her S2. At Mastery level 3, that thing casually gives a random operator of your choice, more on that in a second, a 90% attack buff, which is, to date, the biggest attack buff in its category. S1 is also pretty good, but overall forgettable since it's a generic big heal for a low HP target and doesn't bring extra utility. The trick with her S2 is positioning. You want to have only her intended target in her attack range, which A. makes some maps tricky, B. limits her capability as a healer off skill, so you best use her as a heli drop. Her talent basically turns her into an unreliable SP battery, which can be very situational, but nice. Module cranks that up to 11, but like, meh. Upgrade at your own discretion. Funnily enough, her S2 actually works on Monster, even though similarly worded skills don't. Eyjaalter strikes again. Shining. Shining, the OG good medic with extra utility. Along with Nightingale, she makes a dynamic duo of buffing defensive stats on your operators. Shining's domain is def, and she does a pretty good job at doing that. Her talent 1 passively gives everyone in her range plus 60 def, which is already good. S1 isn't worth mentioning, S2 is the generic AFK skill that helps your team survive a lot of physical damage over a long period of time, while S3 is a whole ass minute of big nope to any physical attack in her range. Both are good, S2 is more AFK friendly while S3 provides greater utility. Both of her modules are pretty good. Y makes her more reliable off skill, and X makes her S3 available more often. Both are good, so pick your poison accordingly. Between her and her vegetable patient, Nightingale is gonna be generally more useful since Res is a way more difficult to come by stat in general, but that doesn't mean that Shining can't shine. Kill me. In certain situations. For Medicmiya, she is a godsend for buffing monsters' def to astronomical levels with her S3 since she doesn't need to target with it. Folinic. Folinic is kind of ass. Like, I want to justify using her because back in the day she and Cal were like the only OG harm assists that started this niche, but realistically her damage output on skill is abysmal, her healing is not that great, and you can skip unless you want to play Medicmiya and somehow failed at getting Vendela, Hibiscus, Titi or Reed. I don't know how you do that. Susuro. Sus. An honorable mention, since she doesn't bring any additional utility to the table beyond healing, but boy oh boy does she bring healing. Very much the recommended medic for fresh accounts to at least E2, maybe even give masteries to her S2, but if you somehow got a well-developed account without using her, she isn't going to help out much. Another honorable mention goes to Ansel, the 3-star that could. Specifically could have the longest medic range on skill. Yeah. Very niche with his abysmal healing output, but like, if you need to reach someone that far away, he can be your guy. Yeah. AoE Medics. A great archetype that is defined by its wonky range, lower attack, and the ability to heal 3 targets at once. You usually want them when the damage you get isn't that bursty, but consistent and comes from multiple sources. Once again, the same drill, the ones that give extra utility are the ones that are worth considering for your squad. Nightingale. The other part of the defensive dynamic duo she forms with Shining. Nightingale's skills mirror Shining's, but Def is replaced with Res. Her talent 1 gives her flat plus 15 Res to everyone in her range, which is very good considering most operators usually have that stat at 0. S2 grants barriers and extra Res, S3 expands her range and gives a lot of res, and 25% arts dodge. Considering she's most likely going to be multiplying the basic 15, she already gives your restless, bitchless operators, they'll get a whopping 38 res. Her modules are a great source of fire for me, because while Hypergraph thinks that releasing bullshit like Eyjaalter, Walter, Logos, Ulpinis, etc. is perfectly okay, giving Nightingale a module that will make her res talent give like 17 instead of like 15 res is a step too far. Her X module is pretty useless outside of giving her 1 extra tile of range, but that tile is very useful. Her Y module, however, substantially buffs her other aspect that I haven't mentioned yet, cages. Cages are a fantastic tool to draw heat away from your operators, bait crucial boss skills, stall ranged enemy units, and so on. Whenever you deploy Nightingale, you gain access to 3 with mod Y poopers that don't block, have a fuckload of res and fizz dodge, cost 5 DP, and have a 20-second deploy timer. More importantly, those have taunt, so dropping them in front of the boss as he is about to kaboom your backline is a very rewarding experience. A few things to note about the poopers. They remain on the field even if Nightingale has already moved on to the afterlife, but they lose 30% HP per second at all times, so you are on a timer with them. And lastly, they refresh with each Nightingale deploy. Overall, an amazing operator that provides great utility that is not found anywhere else. Rose Salt. Who would have thought that a welfare Spanish gremlin would be that good? Her S2 basically turns any big damage instance into a DOT on the operators in her range, a very unique effect that lets your team survive big bursts of damage that they otherwise had no business surviving. M3 her S2 and don't bother with the module, it doesn't really contribute much to her game plan. She is best paired with another source of healing like a good medic or medic defender, because the 50% damage converted into DOT still needs to get healed. Perfumer is both kinda good and kinda not that good. Global healing passive is in general good on paper, but overall is pretty fucking useless 90% of the time. Can be very useful for newer players and early maps that deal constant damage to your operators, and that's about it. She's a lot better in IS though. Helps you deal with the puppet in IS2 and completely offsets the Gitano relic in IS4 to name a few. Funnily enough, her passive scales with her attack, so I once used her in a clear with a Warfarin buff to beef up her attack and her passive healing to keep monster alive. Yes, it works on monster. I still failed. Tea Applesauce, the undisputed 5-star queen of the archetype. Her skills are nothing special and you probably should not waste mats on her masteries. You take her for her talent. 0.3 SP regen to everyone on the field is insane. It increases your team's skill uptime by 30% and it literally makes or breaks a lot of clears. Her module is pretty good, giving 0.35 SP to everyone in her range, as well as giving her the extra tile. Highly recommend going for that one. Skill-wise, S2 is the one to go. You basically pop it when stuff starts dying around her, and then it usually stops dying for the duration. However, it's not her bread and butter. her talent is. There is also an extremely niche interaction between her S2 and the mod, since S2 expands her range. You can technically say that it lets you give 0.05 SP per second to a couple more operators, but good luck finding actual use of it. Chain Medic. Те же яйца, только в профиль. Overall kind of a terrible class that seems to have no real identity beyond AoE Medic, but with extra unnecessary steps attached. Their case isn't improved by the healing weakening between bounces. There is one particular exception. Can you guess it? Yeah, of course you can. Monster. She is deceptive. While by no means Monster is a bad operator, and her numbers on her skill 3 look fucking insane. Attack plus 330%, block plus 2, max HP 5000. Attack interval reduces, true damage, they all sound fucking bonkers. But that is until you remember that she is a chain medic with a frail bitch body and attack numbers slightly bigger than a micro PP. Also, it's an offensive recovery skill, so don't get fooled by the SP cost, you're not having this every 15 seconds. And don't get me wrong, S3 is still very good, especially if you need AoE true damage, but S2 is what actually makes her really good. Her talents are amazing. Just by healing, she gives her target 20% attack damage and 20 attack speed, which is kinda crazy, and her S2 amplifies the talent by 2.8, giving a whopping 56 attack speed. Her entire kit revolves around her summon, Reconstruction. This thing costs 2 DP and can be deployed within her attack range. It keeps losing HP and is prioritized by Monster for healing. Heals that bounce off it don't weaken at first bounce. This thing is there to A. make sure Monster can consistently recover SP since all of her stuff is offensive recovery, B. to apply buffs from her talents to her targets since they need to pass through the thing to work, and C. to be a point to which Monster jumps to with her S3. She's a great M3 candidate on S2, potentially good M6 with S3, skip S1 as usual. For Medicmiya she is essential since with her we go from 1 blocker to 1.5 blockers. Neat. Also, as of recording this, I took too long, so Monster now has a new module. Overall, just a fucking great module. Go get it level 3, buffs her buffing ability even more, and that's what you want her for. Yeah. There are a few things you also need to know about Monster's S3, as it could be very clunky when it comes to deployment order and certain map gimmicks. For instance, it can mess up deployment order because, as I can demonstrate here right in a second, we see the mortar starts targeting Shu as the last deployed unit, but when I use S3 on Monster, boom, suddenly the mortar is targeting her. You need to take that into account when using her S3 for your potential strategies with deployment order. One other thing about her is that she kind of completely breaks the way the deployment platforms in the Solace and the Solace adjacent maps work. For example, you would think that she would jump on the platform and everything's gonna be fine. Nope. That platform is just gone. Which makes her completely unusable on water. And same thing goes to Babel and its weird fucking grates. Whatever the fuck those are called. Traverse plates. She just kinda completely commits a low tier god whenever you try and place her on the thing. And she can completely break the chain. Poof. Vanishes out of existence. So yeah, take that into account when you try and employ her on trickier and wonkier maps, and don't be confused whenever a new map gimmick comes out and monster just completely breaks it. Her nature as a self-redeploying operator can cause a lot of weird interactions. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't put that into the script. Editor, do your thing. Incantation medics, the ones that put harm in harm assist. Basically, arts damage dealers that heal everyone in their attack range for a portion of the damage. Basically, self-sustaining core casters with a range of a marksman. What's not to love? They also have like 10 and 8 res, which is pretty neat. Reed the Flame Shadow. Reed, my beloved. Medic that prior to Logos getting out of NPC jail used to be the de facto best caster in the game. Where do I even begin? With her first talent, Reed has a chance to debuff the enemy attack by minus 20% and give them 30% arts fragility. That means they take 30% more arts damage for the duration. Duh. Her talent 1 was so good that they gave her a placeholder for talent 2. 50% self-heal for every time she heals someone else is frankly laughable, but she's still fucking good. S1 is a typical trash placeholder skill, so we skip right to S2, which is amazing. What it does, it essentially makes 2 random allies in her range deal a fuckload of arts damage and apply her talent every 1.5 seconds. If you can sandwich a boss between 2 ops and turn this bad boy on, the boss will melt. At least a little. This skill is amazing for masteries. So is her flashier and more well-known S3. This one is known to kaboom giant waves of enemies as well as some weaker phones when used. When you pop it, Reed gets plus 60% attack, hits 2 targets, and the Cinder debuff from Talent 1 applies 100% of the time, deals DOT and explodes enemies after they die, spreading the Cinder around them, which can lead to hilarious chain reactions depending on the stage. This one is unparalleled in clearing trash enemies and can still put on a lot of hurt on the elites and bosses. As great as Reed's skill are, her module is complete opposite. I don't know why, but Hypergriff seems to be allergic to giving Reed a module that isn't complete ass. This one is only good for the stats, it provides period and not worth anyone's time. Hibiscus. Hibiscus has really set the bar high for the 5-star Incantation medics. Damage isn't stellar, but that's not why you take her. Her S2 provides an amazing slow and DOT effect that stays on them after they moved out of her range, so you can do a neat little tech where you press skill right as the enemy is about to leave her range and it will stay on them for the full duration or till they die. DOT and slow are good to have in general, but on top of that, Girly casually applies 20% arts fragility with every single attack. Shit is bonkers good. Give her a module and give her S2 some masteries, Hibi is amazing. While Reed's arts fragility is a good 10% better, it's also on a 30% chance, while Hibi does it 100% reliably. Vendela. Vendela, on the other hand, is just kinda bad, which is sad. I really want her to be good, but like the only way you can justify her use is just as an additional shitty caster in Medicmiya. Her skill 2 can be fun, but it's very gimmicky and doesn't have the best damage output. Also, Eyjaalter localization strikes again, since it's worded exactly like Warfarin's S2 in terms of whom it applies to, but it cannot target monster. For shame. Her S1 is better for masteries if you are playing Medicmiya, and S2 is better if you are sane. Use it on Hoshiguma to make her reflect even more damage, I guess. Don't bother with module, it's dog water. Medicmiya suffers from lackluster utility on her S1 as well as lackluster damage on her S2. She's once again a must build for Medicmiya, but for regular content I'd rather skip. S2 might look good on paper since it's true damage, but it really isn't anything stellar. 200% damage on the first attack isn't that impressive when her attack at max level trust is just 600. Then on top of that, to reach max stacks for that boss killing true damage 150% attack buff, you need to hit at least 5 dudes with it. The slow is nice, but at the end of the day it's a one-time use skill that really isn't all that impressive for what it does. Its nature as a one-time only also contradicts her passive that gives max HP regen to all allies on skill. Speaking of the talent, S1 fares barely any better since it has a ridiculously high 70 SP cost, so you won't be using the talent too often. If you want to use a Miya, get some masteries on S2 since it's a more unique of the two skills, but you are honestly better off using her caster version if you want true damage.
私の武器は誰にでも扱えるわけではない。みんな助けに来たよ。
Ah, Medjehtiqedti, but that's much. You know what? I ain't doing this bit. Ah, Titi. The newest addition to Pharmacists, and Sleep Knights, and Sargon Knights, and Minas Knights? Minoans can't stop being colonized by Sargon even in their niche. Grim. Titi is good. Like, really fucking good. I dare say one of the best designed characters that came out recently. Her kit is just really fun to play with. Both her S2 and S3 are amazing, and her module is very useful. Day one of trying her out on stream was a fucking blast. Yes, this is my Twitch plugin. Yes, what you gonna do about it, huh? So, Titi's kit. First, the negatives. S1 is beyond useless. Don't even bother touching it, like, it's comically bad in a way that it's straight up worse than S3 in every single way. You'd think that there would be at least one technical upside, like Cal S1 can charge without monster and also affects her, so it can technically have some niche use case, but not so much with Titi. S1 has worse damage numbers, less targets, worse SP cost, worse starting SP, worse duration, worse sleep duration, and so on. Here's where the negatives end and positives begin. Her talents are amazing. Talent 1 is basically her main source of damage. Things to note about Talent 1. It works on all stationary enemies, not just sleeping ones, so it works with stuns, frozen effects, etc. However, it doesn't work on shifted enemies or enemies that are being spawned in or are reviving. Still works on enemy devices that are stationary by nature, like Salt Hip Cannons and Thor's Altar event. Talent 2 is surprisingly good too. Its floor is just giving Titi 20 attack speed for free, which is good, because she's a medic and she will be above 50% health, let's face it. And its ceiling is giving that 20 to Narantuya, Passenger, Palace, and so on. S2 is the main stalling skill, that can also be used to emergency save a dying op in Titi's range. It basically stops everyone in their tracks around Titi and the lowest percentage P operator in her attack range. It puts her and the operator to sleep for 15 seconds and continuously keeps sleeping all enemies in the surrounding tiles around her and her target, dealing a ton of damage to them and also healing everyone around in the process. It's an amazing skill that stalls basically anything, unless it's immune to sleep. In Medicmiya specifically, this skill solves a second blue box problem. With Monster S3 and TTS2, you can basically cover it like 90% of the time. Another thing to note here, sleeping allies cannot block or attack. Duh. So be careful while using it on a key lane holding target. S3 is a more generic skill that boils down to I deal a shitload of damage to 2 targets at once while also sleeping them for 5 seconds each. Overall great for stalling, damaging, and saving your own units. Her module drastically boosts her damage output, but doesn't contribute any extra utility beyond that. Highly recommend getting it. Titi as an operator has a lot of synergies with all the sleep-inducing operators, and really elevates the performance of the likes of Erato, Blemishine, and other sleepers. Yep, and I think that's neat. In an era where, for some reason, we only consider Wang tier operators good, it's nice to play around with these neat synergies and get meaningful results. Eat your heart out, Supah. Yeah. One other fun little thing that my good friend Zere Hikikomoni has pointed out, because I never use anything but medics, so my idea of what other operators do is quite limited, is that sleeping units cannot be attacked. So let me demonstrate real quick. What we have here. A reminder that the wording on AK is attacks an ally. Here, Castle would 100% die from AK, but not no more. And now we have a gig above Castle. And since you can voluntarily stop the sleep on Titi, you can basically use her to arc-proof literally any unit in the game, so feel free to use that in your high-end clears. Another thing that I completely failed to mention is that History's Bloom, her S3, not only puts people to sleep, but also basically acts as Silence Alter Immortality, but with extra steps. So if your unit dies within her attack range while she is casting her S3, they will be put to sleep until they're fully healed. Which also works on Musha units, though she will not be able to heal them back. But operators like Helagor would still receive their regeneration from talents. So overall, once again, one of the best designed and most versatile units they have printed out lately. Too bad she was right before Wayne. Yeah. Therapist. A pretty great, albeit confusing archetype. Therapists help your dudes deal with status effects, not elemental damage. So, for instance, Lumen will not help you reduce nervous impairment from these beaky shitters on your ops in any way, but he will help you deal with the stun that comes after the NP bubble pops. Therapists in general have a great healing range with 20% penalty on healing in the outer tiles of their range. Speaking of Lumen, all-around amazing medic that makes every single one of his subclass contemporaries obsolete. While others merely help you deal with getting stunned, Bro just flat out wakes your operators up from it. S3 is his preferred skill. It turns him into an amazing healer with one of the best constant outputs in the game for its duration, and it lasts as long as it has ammo. The neat part is that it spends ammo only to wake someone up, so either he negates up to 8 stuns, or he shits out healing faster and more consistently than most of the medics you can field. Both of which are awesome. Build Lumen. Get S3 to M3, both modules are pretty viable. Y removes class penalty on healing in his outer range, X buffs his ability to give status resistances. So get Y if you want him for general use, and X if you plan to use him only as anti-crowd control. One other thing that rarely gets brought up is self-stun mitigation for therapists as a whole and for Lumen specifically. So, some characters like Spectre or Eunectes have self-stun baked into their kit, which therapists with their status resistance can help mitigate. However, you have to keep in mind that, for example, Lumen only gives his status resistance on heal, and it will be relevant in a second. Here you can see Spectre gets stunned, immediately wakes up, Lumen uses his skill. However, that is only possible because she was losing HP. Eunectes, same picture, same difference. If you cannot get your unit damaged, Lumen will not heal them, therefore Lumen will not wake them up. Very important thing, a lot of people miss it. Same thing with status resistance. Any other therapist would work too, but they would only shorten the duration of the stun, while Lumen can just wake them the fuck up again. Hope it helps. God, this took like 5 billion tries. Wandering Medic. The class that actually helps remove elemental status effects with their attacks. They have inverted therapist range, dinky attack, and prioritize elemental injury over lowest health. Eyjaalter. She is the one medic from a very niche subclass who somehow power crept most other medics. There is actually a good amount of really decent wandering medics, but they're all completely irrelevant in the face of a deaf volcanologist. Her talent buffs her healing output, as well as max HP and nerf all incoming elemental damage. Her module is pretty good and slightly buffing those numbers, but it doesn't make or break the operator. Out of her skills, the one people use most often is S1, just for the frankly stupid amount of healing and basically removing all elemental damage from the equation. It is an infinite duration skill that buffs her attack, makes her heal 2 people at the same time, and just passively recovers elemental injury on top of her attack already doing that. S3 is also a strong consideration for masteries because of a global heal with a strong elemental mitigation, while S2 is niche, but it still can heal monster and mudrock and other enmity units and unhealable units. A lightning round of medics that actually are decent for medic knights. Mulberry gives all your medics attack, sometimes useful. I once couldn't do a clear because I didn't have her potential. Yep, those 2% really mattered. Silence, she gives all your medics attack speed, and that stat is one of the best ones to give. Lancer 2, believe me or not, has some niche use cases. Mainly when you are starved for deployment slot and sometimes need a wee bit of healing, but your deployment limit doesn't allow for that. Very specific, but it does happen. And that's about everything you need to know to use the medic class in Arknights. As a rule of thumb, you want to have at least 2 decent medics built just in case. Outside of that, the most useful ones to build from the list above would be Shining Nightingale pair, Ayaberry, Tea Applesauce, and Lumen. These 5 should cover all of your healing needs. And with that being said, I think we're done. You can always go more in depth into some more finer mechanics, but it's not that kind of guide. As always, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully the stuff was helpful. Feel free to ask anything in the comments below. I do answer like 90% of those. Yeah. Check out my Twitch, shit's fun. Like, subscribe. Actually, hype the video if you can. I heard from the whispers in the wind that this thing actually is helpful. So if this feature is available for you, I would be very, very appreciative of that. Anyway, till next time, toodles. Check out Voice Nights. Bye! I'll be talking about general application? Application, fuck. They'll get a... fuck. Why do I write like this? They'll get a whopping 38. Why did I say 35? They'll get a whopping 38%. I just had to say percent. Dealing a ton of damage to them and also healing everyone else around. Jesus, what the fuck? What the fuck was I thinking writing this fucking sentence?